I want to hit the New York Times list because that was what I had talked to my late grandmother about. That was what she would always say. One day I'm going to see you on the New York Times list. I think intrinsically from the beginning, before I even started querying, that I had to separate my worth from my work and recognize that just because someone is rejecting my work does not mean that they are rejecting me. So it feels very surreal still because I don't think it's caught up with my brain because I'll post and I'm just like, oh, I mean, I opened my Threads account the other day and I was like, holy crap, how did I get over 300,000 followers on Threads? That's bananas. It's still shocking to me every single day. I think they work, with the work in particular because it is, statistically, you're gonna get a
all right.
Today's guest should have a Guinness World Record for rejection. Brianne Randall got turned down 500 times, signed a book deal for just $4,000, and still turned it into a New York Times bestseller with 100,000 copies sold in year one. No ads, no publisher push, just diehard fans, the kind who pre-ordered 11,000 copies of her debut. All powered by what Gary Vee calls interest media, free platforms, free attention, free space to hype up yourself. She built this from 0 to 600,000 followers and 7 million reach every month. She started this 2.5 years back, which I think is incredible. And now she's climbing fast on Substack. I'd bet she'll be one of the top voices on the platform soon. Her secret: hooks, not plots. Gilmore Girls meets practical magic. Instantly recognizable, emotionally sticky, impossible to ignore. Today, Bree's here to spill how she pulled it off and how you can do too. Cozy fall vibes, plenty of laughs, but don't get too comfy. She's about to flip how you think about selling books. Bree, I know that you sold 100,000 copies of your debut book in a single year with 0 ad spend. Most authors would kill for 1,000. What do you say to writers who think the key is shouting about their plot or characters instead of focusing on a hook?
I think my answer to that is it's so enticing because you've worked so hard on this book and you're so close, you're so attached to the plot, the characters, the aesthetics, all the things with your book. But ultimately, when it comes down to social media, which is, there's always a discourse, there's always a conversation about can social media move the needle on book sales? And I think Book Talk, has pretty much, for the most part, laid that question to rest because it's very clear that, yes, social media can move the needle if you're utilizing it correctly. So I think my answer to somebody who might say that would be, yes, it can be enticing to focus on those things, but using a hook is going to be the way to create your ideal audience without overwhelming them with things that they're not going to care about yet, because that's just the truth of the matter.
And do you have any tips on how we can promote our books?
I think what it really boils down to, somebody just asked me this yesterday on Threads. They said, so a hook is basically just comp titles. And I said, it can be. It absolutely can be just comp titles. And I think the importance when it comes to comp titles, well, you have really two options. One is you can go very niche. You can speak to a very, very small audience who are very desperately, obsessed with that niche thing, or you can go broader and these fandoms that have cult followings who have just so many people highly emotionally invested in, whether it's like Supernatural, Gilmore Girls, Practical Magic, like all these different types of shows that have come, or movies throughout the years that people have just become really attached to. So you can go small, you can go niche, or you can kind of like whatever fits your book. The broader generalized concept of, the vibes is really what it boils down to, because somebody once said, oh, my book is like a Taylor Swift song. And I'm like, that's a beautiful hook, because instantly anybody who loves to read and also loves Taylor Swift, that's going to be right up their alley. And they're going to know that emotional resonance, that somatic feeling in their body, like, oh my gosh, I want this. So anything that can relate vibes wise, whether it's a song, whether it's a movie, whether it's a show, whether it's another book, any of these things, and they don't have to be exact crossovers. Everybody's going to have very diametrically opposed opinions. So if I pitch my book as Gilmore Girls meets Practical Magic, one person's going to read it, and this happened so many times. One person's going to read it and they're going to say, oh my gosh, I totally see the comps. Yes, it totally feels like Practical Magic and Gilmore Girls. And then another person's going to read it and they're going to be like, oh, I don't see any of that. That's terrible. It's not like that at all. Blah, blah, blah. So it really just, you have to kind of set that aside. You have to know that you're going to get some feedback that's positive, some feedback that's negative. And as long as the comp titles really truly are, it gives an idea of what somebody's going to get when they go into your book.
And like two things I would love to add. So, of course, I checked out your TikTok and your Instagram account, and I love that you came up here with Taylor Swift, and I know that you're pretty excited about her getting married and you're a Swiftie. I love that you shared that you see Taylor Swift as like an English teacher, like your favorite English teacher, something like this.
English teacher, yes.
I guess this is then because of her storytelling. Am I right? Like
yes,
The Summer I Turned Pretty, like have you watched like The Summer I Turned Pretty? Do you know this? Yeah, and I'm like, I love all the songs because the songs are telling the story like of the specific scene. I love this so much because you came already up with like social media. Everyone is talking about social media, like social media is bad, social media is dead, forget about the followers and all this stuff. You are on social media, with the podcast. I interviewed so many people already on social media. But what do you think about Gary Vee? Gary Vee, for instance, is now saying we're now we are in the era of not social media, of interest media, meaning that we're like seeing the people we are interested in. So even people with just like 5 followers or so, let's say indie publishers with like 0 social media presence, no presence on the internet, can now go viral. What do you think about this Gary Vee approach? And maybe what role does Taylor Swift play in this?
I think, what's so funny is my husband has talked about Gary Vee for quite some time, and I had no idea who he was. And I just randomly on TikTok scrolled through and watched one of his videos, and he was talking about you should be creating as much content as humanly possible, as much content as you are able to create in a day. That is what you should be doing, because the power of social media is that, yes, exactly what you're saying, what he said, which is that it has turned into interest media, because the power of social media is that truly, literally one post can change the entire trajectory of your life. And so, yes, it has definitely shifted away from the social media aspect. I mean, I remember the old days of Instagram where there's, 8 filters. When I first downloaded Instagram, it was 2011. 2010, 2011. And I didn't know that it was a social media app. I thought it was just for the filters. So I went and I posted to get the filter. I had taken a picture of me in my wedding dress. I wasn't married yet. And I posted it so I could see the, pretty cool filter. It looks all sepia tone. And I went I was in college at the time, and I went to school the next day. And somebody said, "Oh my gosh, I love your wedding dress. It's so beautiful." And I just thought, what? Where did you? So that was my first experience with social media. And it was so small back then. And it was, you followed each other for the daily updates and for, I'm going on vacation and all these things. And it really, truly was social media. I do think there are still aspects of it that are very social. And I do think that if you can utilize it correctly, you really, truly can build a very powerful, close-knit community that feels small, even if it's big. So yeah, with Gary Vee, I mean, he's definitely, I think, hit the nail on the head. And I think his power comes with impact of his words, and his stuff is very shareable and it's very inspiring, because they always pair it with that deeply inspiring kind of music, where you're watching it, you're like, ooh, yes, I'm going to post as much as I possibly can. And I think there is something to be said about that. The subject of quality over quantity, that's been a conversation for years now. And I think I fall somewhere in the middle, probably leaning towards the side of quantity, just because, I look at the beautiful videos that people create, and that's not me. I don't have the time for that. I don't have the interest in doing that. And I've found what works for me, and that is definitely short form content. I don't know how Taylor Swift ties into all of it, but I definitely think Gary Vee, I'm on the bandwagon with him. It's definitely interest media.
Please, readers, this is your backstage pass. If you already adore her books, now is your chance to meet the real Brie up close inside the inner circle of the online writing club. She's leading an exclusive masterclass and a cozy, unfiltered conversation. It's the only place where you get to laugh with her, hear her stories, and connect with her beyond the page. There's like one thing that most indie publishers especially like fear, and this is like the fear of rejection. And I know that you don't shy away of showing us that you experienced like over 500 rejections before landing your amazing book deal. Yeah, we're going to talk about this amazing book deal. How did you keep going when most writers would have quit in this situation?
I think for me personally, I knew intrinsically from the beginning, before I even started querying, that I had to separate my worth from my work. And I had to understand the subjectivity of this business, of the publishing industry, and recognize that just because someone is rejecting my work does not mean that they are rejecting me. And so it helped me kind of create a little bit of distance between myself and my work, my books. Some authors are very tight with their words, like they don't like to delete things, they don't want to change things. They're very attached. And I'm not. I'm always wanting to just make it the best that it can be, even if I have to cut 20,000 words from the manuscript, which I just did recently. And it's painful. But, so for me, it's I'm willing to change anything. So I don't have this very tight grip on my work. I'm invested in it. I love it. But at the end of the day, I know that they're two separate entities. There's me as a human being, and my worth lies in that, regardless of what I accomplish, whatever I do or don't do. And then there's my work, which is being evaluated by a third party, somebody who doesn't know me in any way, shape, or form. And if it doesn't resonate with them, that's completely okay, because that's their prerogative. So I think, there were a couple of moments, it didn't happen often, but there would be a couple of moments where maybe I'd get 5 rejections in a day. And I would just, my heart would sink, and my stomach would just, be in knots. And I'd think, oh, this sucks so bad. And then every night I would get into bed and I would lay there and I would just think, okay, you know what? Tomorrow could be the day. Tomorrow could be the day. And so I kind of get that hope back each night in my heart.
At the same time, you somehow managed to send out apparently like 500 pitches, Crazy,
yeah. I mean, it was so I wrote 4 books.
Like maybe this is like a world record or so. I don't know. But I heard from someone, even he got like 1,000 rejections. I think this comedian, Kevin Hart, I think.
Oh,
he got,
really?
I think, rejected like 1,000 times
Yeah.
or so. How many years did you spend on these rejections? Like 3 years or 5 years or
10? It was over
10
over
years.
10. Yeah, 10 years. So I started writing my first book in 2011. And, I think I started querying later that year with that book. And then I spent probably over a year querying each book, because, sometimes it can take very long time for literary agents to get back to you. And I would just always hold out hope. Then I'd be like, okay, it's not this one. Move on to the next, write the next book. And so I wrote 4 books and queried each and every one of them. And the offer of representation that I got from my literary agent for my debut novel, I was thinking, gosh, okay, I guess I have to write another book. Because I'd already sent out so many queries, but it all worked out.
Yeah. And now everyone who's listening or watching, he's like, oh, wow, she got this amazing book deal. But I saw on notes that it was just like $4,000 or so for the first book. What did this like teach you about the business side of publishing?
Manage your expectations. I mean, I'll never forget, my agent called me and I didn't answer because I was busy doing something. And I, checked my email a little bit later. She goes, answer your phone or call me back. So I call her back and she tells me, check your email, whatever. And she told me I got this offer, and it was with a small press. And we had been on submission at that point for over a year, almost a year and a half. So, and it was during COVID. The publishing industry is slow in and of itself. And during COVID, it was even slower. And so we got that offer and I said, what do you think? Should I do it? And I was like, I really don't want to self-publish because I know what it takes to self-publish. I see it. And I just had my baby, my second baby, and I had a newborn. And I was like, I don't have what it takes right now to be a like an indie published author. They are superheroes. I don't have that in me right now. So she said, then yeah, I think you should take the $4,000 offer. And I said, okay, I want to hit the New York Times list. I'll take the offer. I want to hit the New York Times list because that was what I had talked to my late grandmother about. That was what she would always say. One day I'm going to see you on the New York Times list. And so I said, okay, I'm going to take the deal. $4,000 is $4,000. It's great. And then, that it just kind of from there took off. I'm a very type A person. I'm a go-getter. I have a lot of drive. I also love to work and I love marketing. I used to joke that in another life, I don't know if you ever watched the show Mad Men. I loved that show and I was like, oh my gosh, if I think in another life I was like an admin in New York City back in the 60s or something. I love marketing. After I got that offer, because I had never talked about it one single time on social media. All I had was an Instagram account with some freaking, family and friends following me. I'm not going to post about it nothing had happened yet. I'm not going to post about anything. So I got that offer. My Instagram was dead in the water. I had no interaction. I tried posting a couple posts about the book, got nothing. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to try TikTok. I'm going to try it. I created an account and I said, okay, nobody's going to care about me. Nobody knows who I am. What can I do? What can I say that's going to get people interested in my book without telling, because the attention span is so short. I can't be telling them, oh, my main character is going on this, you know what I mean? Exactly. So I'm thinking, okay, so I condensed it into this hook and started posting about it. And pretty immediately it started doing really well. Now, over the course of my, almost 3 years on social media now, I have had very few videos go viral. So most of my videos are only getting, especially on TikTok, anywhere between 1 and 10,000 views, maybe. So it's not like I'm getting millions of views. It's not like I'm going viral. And this is what I always try to tell people I'm talking. They're like, oh, well, you have a bunch of followers. I'm like, yeah, I may, but I still don't get high views. It's not about that. It's about the consistency. It's about the repeatable actions. It's about the touch points of somebody seeing my video and being like, oh, that sounds good. And then I keep posting about it and I keep posting about it and they see it a third time, a fourth time. And they're like, dang, you know what? I'm going to get that. So I just continually posted every day with the variations on the hook. My TikTok, grew to like 10,000 probably in the first like 2 weeks, which was fantastic. And then it just kept going. I kept sharing. I started sharing about my journey, the rejections, because I want people to know. I want people to know that it took over 10 years and I wanted to bring them along on the journey with me. And I think that is so hugely important for any author, whether it's indie or trad, any stage of the journey, because it is interest media. I think bringing in those touch points of your personal journey kind of circles it back to a little bit of social media where it's kind of combining them. You've got your hook, which is interest media, and then you've got your personal journey, which is a little bit of social media. And if you can combine those two, I think it's really, really powerful because somebody is going to be invested in you and they're going to be invested in your work. So that was my goal. And then after that took off, I thought, gosh, well, I guess I better try Instagram again. But I knew that the Instagram algorithm hated me. So what I decided to do was to start creating shareable content because I knew that for me to get back into the algorithm without having to create a new account, I needed my stuff to be shared. And so I created shareable content that related back to my book without actually ever talking about my book. So this was speaking to my ideal audience. For me, it was Gilmore Girls and Practical Magic, kind of those witchy, booky, fall vibes. And I started creating content around that. And then when I started posting about my book, my audience was like, oh, yes, I already love all of these things. That sounds great. So that was kind of my strategy. And it worked. It worked well.
Indie authors, this is your blueprint. Brie didn't buy her way onto the New York Times list, and neither should you. She built diehard fans who gave her 11,000 pre-orders before her book even dropped, all with interest media. Inside the inner circle, she's showing exactly how she did it, from the posts and hooks she used to the repeatable system that turned attention into sales. This is the proven path from a 4K book deal to 100,000 copies sold. A lot of authors, they believe that you need a huge marketing machine. How do you think did you prove them wrong? We heard already about like your TikTok approach, your Instagram approach. What do you think? How did you do like things differently as an author?
Somebody commented again the other day on Threads. I had posted about I think I'd posted about the different types of videos that I use to market on social media. And somebody responded, I hate that the publishing industry has turned into this thing where the author has to become the marketer when that should be their job. And I thought, I agree and I disagree because yes, it is the publisher's job to market their book. But also for me personally, I take responsibility. I have my own goals and my own dreams, and nobody's going to care about something as much as you care about it. And so for me, what that looks like is I want to do the work that's necessary to achieve my goals, to accomplish my mission, whatever that is for each different book, for each different stage of my career. And yes, oh my gosh, I look at these books, that these authors that have huge marketing budgets, and that's amazing. That's fantastic. But again, of course, yes, I had no money. So for indie authors specifically, because with traditional publishing, you're usually going to get, your book put on NetGalley, which is where, advanced readers can request it to have an early digital copy. They're usually going to do something like Goodreads giveaways, which is great because it gets people adding your book to their shelves on Goodreads. So that's tip. And then they'll have some kind of marketing and publicity plan, which can be, very small, or it can be very large, depending on what your deal size was. Are you a mid-list author or a pillar author, or all these things, all these different factors? But really, what it boils down to is if you are willing to do the work to accomplish what you want to accomplish, you're going to put in the work to utilize what is within our grasp for free, and that is social media. So I think I would just say, I don't know if I did dispel that myth in any way, but I think for me, it's just really about the amount of work you're able and willing to put in. And that is exactly why I keep my videos 7 seconds. That's why there's, I might post a talking video once every 6 months because I don't want to do the editing for it. I don't have the time for it. I think it's possible if you want it. A lot of people don't want to show their face. A lot of people don't want to post repeatedly because they think, oh, people are going to get irritated. Oh, people are going to unfollow me, or they're going to unsubscribe. And I mean, boy, oh boy, it is just all about repetition. I will post 4 or 5 times in a day on TikTok, and I still get new comments on each one because the same people aren't seeing those videos. So I think it's really about dispelling the myths of, these beliefs that we hold around marketing and replacing them with just not caring because you can't, if you want to get somewhere, you cannot care. You cannot put value in what a random person on the internet may or may not think of your 7-second video.
What you achieved is that you managed to get 11,000 pre-orders. What do you think helped you to get these pre-orders? Because, for instance, with Evelyn Sky, I was talking about pre-orders, and she's a New York Times bestselling author, and she told me that the pre-orders now wouldn't work anymore. Maybe you can share a bit more about these 11,000 pre-orders, what strategy maybe was behind this, which low budget strategy was behind it, and what do you think about pre-orders in 2025, 2026? Do they still work?
So I was marketing at the end of starting in fall 2022 all the way up until September 2023, which is when the book came out. And yes, I do think that pre-orders now are different than they were then because the world is different now than it was then. And I think that, the conversation that my husband and I have almost every single day is, why is everything so expensive? So I think with the way things have changed over the course of the last 2.5, 3 years, I do think it is harder to get pre-orders. And I think with my debut, I believe that there was a combination of the hook and the journey. And I think I was an underdog. I think that people resonated with my story of, I wrote this book. It was inspired by my late grandmother. She was my best friend. And my goal is to hit I talked about what my manifestations and my goals every single day. Here's what I'm going for. Here's what I want to happen. Oh my God. Oh my gosh. If, at this point it was like, oh, if 20% of my following pre-ordered my book, I'd instantly hit the New York Times bestseller. So all of these different ways basically of saying and bringing these people in, they're part of my journey. They're supporting me. And that's what I mean, where it's like, it's so important to bring people on your journey, not just your book's journey, because everybody has a story. Everybody has their own story. Maybe it's rejection. Maybe it's what their book was inspired by. Maybe it's their goals. Whatever the story is, somebody is going to resonate with it. And so I think particularly for my debut, people resonated with that aspect of my journey and they wanted to support me. I also worked my ass off on pre-order campaigns. So, I sitting at my kitchen table, what little money I got from the book deal, I put towards pre-order stuff. I did it all myself. I didn't want to wait for my publisher. I wanted to be in control of it. And so I did an art print, I did a sticker, I did a bookmark, I did a signed book plate, and I mean, I have video and I posted video of me sitting at my kitchen table, stuffing envelopes. I had like a little assembly line where I just, took one, and then I printed a note to go in each one and I hand addressed each envelope for the first 500 people who pre-ordered. And so I think that kind of kicked things off really well. And then I partnered with 2 different indie bookstores that I reached out to and said, hey, can we do a pre-order campaign? And then they worked on their end to promote it. I worked on my end to promote it. I always joke that if there's a word to describe me, it is relentless. I am relentless. So I worked really hard on those pre-order campaigns. I posted about them every single solitary day. I was building my email list at the same time. So anytime there was a sale, Barnes & Noble has a quarterly 25% off pre-order sale. So I would post that, and I set up automation on Instagram so that when a sale would happen or when I was promoting the pre-order campaign, somebody could comment a word and then they're automatically going to get a DM with the link to what they're requesting. I can't do that on TikTok. So it takes a lot of time, I will say, to individually respond to each comment when I have the call to action, comment X word, and I'll respond with Y. And then it's just literally copy, paste, going through literally sometimes thousands of comments. But I set aside time in the day to do that because I know that each one of those people commenting is a potential person in my community, that they're going to join my community, that they're going to be part of my book journey, my world. And maybe they'll pre-order, maybe they'll buy later. The money for the first 500 pre-order campaign it ended up being around, with stamps, because stamps are absurdly expensive here, it ended up being around $1.15 per envelope, with all the stuff inside. So it cost maybe around $600 to send the first 500 swag envelopes. And then my publisher printed like a recipe card for the other pre-order campaign. And the other thing that I did, which I completely forgot about until now, was I went on Canva and I created a digital recipe book. It took me maybe 5 or 6 days to make this, because in my book, there's a recipe at the end of each chapter. I think most of or almost all of those recipes, and put them into like an aesthetically pleasing digital recipe book. So that was another pre-order incentive, that people could fill out a form with their email and then they would get that in their email inbox. And I think that's another great option for people who don't have, money to spend on pre-order items, is some kind of digital product like that relates back to their book.
And to go back to these 2 indie bookstores, are they still a thing? Is this something you can recommend? Or like the exact names, do you recall them?
Oh, yeah. So one was Blue Mountain Bookstore in Wyoming. And then the other was Books Are Magic in Brooklyn, New York. I mean, I just sent a message on Instagram to both of them, was like, hey, would you be interested in? And the one in Wyoming, I had already been, I had chatted with her a couple of times. And they were both, yes, absolutely. We'd love to host a pre-order campaign. I mean, you might need to reach out to a dozen of them, 2 dozen, before you find somebody who's going to say yes, because it is for them a risk, especially for indie books, which is just such an unfortunate aspect of the publishing industry, but it is true. I think it can help. And yes, like I mentioned before, as part of the answer to your second part of your question, yes, I do think it's harder to get pre-orders in 2025, but I'm partnering with a new indie bookstore this time. They're in Folsom, California. They're called Ruby's Books. And I partnered with them for my last pre-order as well. So for this series. And I think it just builds a really great connection in the community. And I think, again, it goes back to readers, for the most part, they love to support indie bookstores and they love to support authors. And they also love to get free stuff, because who doesn't? So it's just like the perfect little trifecta.
Yeah, now, Brie, you are at about like 7 million plus people a month with over 600,000 followers across platforms. I read this on notes. You shared this somewhere. How does this make you feel, And I think this is crazy with all the pre-orders and all the followers, and all the views.
it feels very strange because for the most part, when I post something in my head, I still only have maybe 1,000 followers. So when I post something, I think, oh, like I'll post something to my story. Again, I'm so dumb sometimes. I'll post something to my story and I'll be like, oh, if you want the link for the new pre-order campaign, send me an emoji and I'll DM you the link to it. And I think, oh, maybe 12 people will see it. I don't know, like that will respond. Maybe 100 people will see it. Maybe 12 people will respond. And then I'll open my Instagram app and I forget, oh, I have, 250,000 followers. And I forget that. And then my DMs will just be flooded with people asking for the link. And I'm like, okay, now here it goes. I got to go to each copy paste the link to each person. So it feels very surreal still because I don't think it's caught up with my brain because I'll post and I'm just like, oh, I mean, I opened my Threads account the other day and I was like, holy crap, how did I get over 300,000 followers on Threads? That's bananas.
But there is still one thing missing here we haven't talked about really is you now had these 11,000 pre-orders. And then what happened after this or with this?
We hit 11,000 pre-orders. And when I'm talking about it on social media, I just usually say 10,000 plus pre-orders. But it was the small press that I worked with, that I was published with, I think they were astonished. And I think it was the most pre-order sales that they had ever had for a book. It's very unlikely typically for the New York Times to have a book hit the list, even if they have the sales, if that person comes from small press. And so I said, I need to make it so that they literally can't say no. They can't deny it. And so my goal in creating and getting these pre-orders and generating this buzz, it was a Library Guild Choice Award. It had all these things. It was chosen for Jen and Jared Padalecki's book club. It was chosen as a secondary book of the month club pick because all of this buzz was surrounding it. And that my goal was to utilize all of that so that the people at the New York Times would not be able to be like, oh yeah, we didn't know about that book. So we couldn't put it on the list. So hit the New York Times bestseller list and continued to share about the book, to share about the wins and the losses along the way, because there's a lot of ups and downs in the publishing industry. And at that point, I had not written another book because I shouldn't say that. I started writing my next book about 2 months before my first book came out. And this was because we highly believed that it was going to hit the New York Times list. And so my agent said, the best time to go on submission is the week after you hit the New York Times bestseller list. So you need to have that next book, Brianne. And I was like, oh, I guess that means I should write it. So in 2 months, I wrote an entire book, which was Spells, Strings, and Forgotten Things, which was my book that came out in March of this year. And my agent took it on submission afterwards, and I had just hit the New York Times list, and we got an amazing offer from an amazing publisher, and that was the next step.
This was Penguin then, am I right?
Yes, it was the
Random House?
Yeah, the imprint is called Dell, and it's an imprint of Random House. It was a 2-book deal. When we pitched them, when we sent it to them, it was just one book. I said, I didn't have a second book, and we talked to the editor, and she said, well, I really love this character in the book. Can you do a second book that follows her? And I said, absolutely, let's do it.
No problem.
Yeah, no problem. And that was what allowed me to basically become a full-time author. So it was all the hard work, it definitely built up to something. And I still, I'm still doing the same amount of work on social media, even though my publisher is great and they're doing their own thing. I still feel the responsibility on my end to do what I'm capable of on my end.
Inside the Inner Circle, Bree's spilling everything. This is the behind the scenes. Bree who shares the real playbook. From content that reaches 7 million people a month to the hook that made her a bestseller. She's giving you both the tactics and the heart. It's equal parts masterclass and fireside chat. And it's only for paid members of the online writing club's inner circle. So join now. What was your situation before you could become this full-time writer?
So before my husband was working full-time, I was working part-time from home and homeschooling my 2 girls. So they were, I wasn't homeschooling my younger one then because she was only, 2 or 3. That allowed me to work as an author full-time. My husband quit his job. He was able to quit his job, which is great because it was a very, very toxic work environment. And he stays home now. He also works kind of part-time from home. He has a business that he runs with social media, real estate. We basically just both stay home, and I have my office here, and this is where I am for, most of every day. Writing. And
I love your office there with the bookshelf and the candles.
Thank you.
This is wonderful. This is magical, of course.
My husband built it all for me.
Oh, for you. Oh, wonderful.
Yes.
This is love, isn't it?
Yes, this is love.
Wonderful.
Absolutely.
I know that you relied on just 3 post types. You say that's the POV clips, slideshows, and then memes and quotes. Can you maybe walk us through why those work so well and what you can recommend for others who would want to promote their book like this and getting lots of pre-orders and all this stuff?
I think they work. I think the 7-second videos with a POV style work in particular because it is, statistically, you're going to get typically, not always, there's an exception to every rule, but typically you're going to get a higher response rate if you show your face. And for me, that looks like, the POV of just my face or B-roll of me sitting at my computer typing or me in front of my books because, again, I don't have the time to film all of the talking videos, but I still want to show my face. And so I think those work well because they do have the human connection point of my face and then the POV text on screen that almost always, I will say 99.9% of the time include both a hook and a call to action because people need, especially on social media, they need to, I don't want to say to be told what to do, but they need to have something to do with a post. Otherwise, they're not going to do anything. They're just going to keep scrolling. So if somebody sees one of my videos, and right now I'm promoting my next book, Curses, Keys, and Secret Societies, and it's inspired by the character Dean Winchester from Supernatural. That's my whole hook. It's a witchy, dark academia book with a love interest inspired by Dean Winchester. So if somebody is scrolling and that catches their eye and they watch it, but there's no call to action, maybe they'll bookmark the video, and they'll think, oh, I'll come back to it later. They're not going to come back to it later. They never do. I never do. I bookmark stuff all the time and I never go back to it. I screenshot stuff all the time and I never see it again. So with the call to action, having somebody comment a word or go to the link in my bio, et cetera, having some kind of call to action, it involves them. They're now more invested because they've taken the time to comment. When they see my response, it's either going to be in their DMs or it's going to be a response comment on TikTok. They can then go to my link in my bio. They can sign up for my newsletter. And then that's always my end goal, is to have somebody sign up for my newsletter because it's such a powerful tool. It's something that you own as opposed to the social media algorithm, which is very fickle. I think that's why the 7-second videos work well. And then for the aesthetic slideshow videos, people like pretty things. I think it's a aesthetically pleasing, rapid slideshow because the rapidity of it kind of catches your brain a little bit where you're scrolling and you're seeing all these videos and then maybe you see these really fast repeating images and it catches your eye. It's aesthetically pleasing and it satisfies the dopamine hit in your brain of, oh, this is, I need to watch this. And then again, the on-screen text is going to have the hook, it's going to have the call to action, but with the added benefit of the images relating back to the vibes of your book, which I think those work powerfully well together. And then again, with the memes and the shareable posts, I think that is the best for building community because you're getting all these. I mean, anytime you think about something that you're obsessed with, that you love, that's in your book because you wrote about it. That's, you're going to love it. Those things, whether it's a gothic horror, whether it's a spicy romance, whether it's a, Stephen King type horror or whatever, all the different types of genres, whatever that thing is, your ideal audience is out there. And so when you create those shareable posts, the memes, you're building that community of people who love the same things that you do. And I think for me, an important part of that, a piece of the puzzle that should not be missed is if you have a carousel of graphics, whether it's on TikTok or on Instagram, the last graphic should always be something that has a call to action, that has a little bit more information, and preferably has an image of you on it as well, so that they're getting the shareable content and the post can be shared many times. But then if they keep swiping, they're going to see, oh, this is the face behind the account. There's somebody actually making these. It's not just a bot, whatever. That kind of just, again, builds that connection point. And each of these posts builds on each of those connection points.
Could you build this flywheel then where you just can repurpose stuff then between
absolutely.
TikTok and Instagram and now also on Substack?
I mean, I've done a couple of posts on Substack that have just, the wording has been notes, not posts, sorry, notes on Substack. I had no idea what Substack was, by the way. Up until about a month and a half ago. I don't listen to podcasts. I don't read blogs. And so somebody had said something
your hobby came along and
yes.
Really?
Yeah, really. No, literally. He was like, well, have you heard of Substack? And I was like, no. And then I remembered that somebody on Substack had actually done a case study on me. And it was the weirdest thing ever because somebody sent it to me and they were like, it was behind a paywall. So it was a paid tier. And they had basically broken down every single thing that I did in my, pre-order campaign and on social media. I think it was right after my book came out. Right before or right after. Anyway, so it was just so weird. And so now I remember, that was Substack. I get it. And that was, so I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. So some notes I've repurposed. I'm still honestly figuring things out on here. But for Instagram and TikTok, oh my gosh, yes, I'll go back to October 2024 and see what did well, see what resonated. And then I'll post that same thing because people forget. And it's going to reach a new audience.
But you're going to take then pieces from Instagram and put them on TikTok or just publish the same stuff from 2024?
Both. So I typically actually don't do the meme type posts on TikTok because they don't seem to do as well. On TikTok, I do more call outs. Like if you're somebody who loves these very oddly, strangely specific things, then we're probably going to be friends. Let's be friends. So that's more of my kind of shareable outreach type of posts on TikTok. And then on Instagram, I keep it more static posts or aesthetic slideshows. Maybe it's all pictures of pumpkins in fall and it's, our time is here or something, just simple things like that.
Hey, this is Christina from the Online Writing Club. I would so much love to welcome you inside the Online Writing Club. Make sure to subscribe and join the club. And I know that now on Substack, you have 2 Substack publications.
Yes.
And you are already at 1,000 subscribers, which I think is amazing, and 86 paid. And you told me now that your hobby recommended this, but then on your Instagram somewhere, I saw that before you were using Flowdesk or something. Am I right? You were recommending this at least.
So that's so funny because I've been asked this question a couple of times actually by people who know how deep my love goes for Flowdesk. So I do still utilize Flowdesk, and here's why. My Substack is geared specifically towards authors. Everything else that I do is geared towards readers. So it's towards my books. I'm not marketing my books on Substack. I'm marketing my marketing. I want to equip authors, indie, trad, querying, already published, New York Times, anybody who wants to learn, anybody who wants to go on the journey with me because I'm still learning. And, I've talked about this several times in my posts where I say, this is what worked for me. This is my path. This is my journey. You can try it. I'm not saying it's going to be an overnight success. What I am saying is it takes time to build things like this. And again, very, very, I'm thinking off the top of my head, 2 viral posts. And by viral, I mean like they hit over 1 million views in the course of my time on social media. So it really is not about virality. It's about the consistency. And I think anybody can do it. And oh my gosh, I just got so passionate. I forgot the question.
You were like, oh, I love Flowdesk. I'm going to explain you why. And then you wanted to compare this to Substack.
This is my ADD brain. I'm
why
sorry.
you are now also on Substack.
Yes. So I use Flowdesk to deepen the relationship with my reader, between the reader and the book. It's not even necessarily between me and the reader. It's between the reader and the book. So I create workflows whereby when somebody subscribes for one of my emails, maybe it's for my first book, maybe it's for my second book, maybe it's for my third book, they're going to be entered into this workflow that I've created beforehand, where they're going to be entered into the world of that book. So I create graphics on Canva. I create Spotify playlists. I create all these different kinds of things, character cards, signs for like fake signs for the town, that's in the book. And they get these in their email every few weeks, maybe every month, because nobody wants to get an email, you know what I mean? Like every 2 days, but slowly integrating them into the world of the book so that they can be acquainted with more than what they're going to get in the book, first of all. And secondly, if they haven't read the book yet, like if I'm marketing a book that hasn't come out yet, they're going to be very invested in that book before it even comes out. And they're going to, when they reach the book, when it comes out, they're going to be like, oh my gosh, I remember seeing this in an email, oh, I remember getting the behind the scenes look. So yes, I still utilize Flowdesk 100%. I have over 20,000 email subscribers on Flowdesk. And then Substack specifically is for authors. So I will be keeping those separate. I'll still be utilizing Flowdesk because I think it has a lot of features that Substack doesn't have for that very purpose. Even something as simple as the 1-page landing page for email signups that you can customize and things like that. So yeah, Substack for me was ultimately the reason I started it is because we had the same car for over a decade.
You needed a new car.
Yeah, no, we were driving it and we were like, what is that sound? That's not good. And we took it in, and our mechanic, who's the sweetest lady ever, was like, I can't fix this for you. It's not good. No. So we bought the cheapest car we could find. But I get so stressed out about money. And so with the publishing industry, because, yes, like New York Times bestselling author, 10,000 pre-orders, blah, 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 whatever. Let's just say I'm not going to the Maldives yet. Okay. So I get paid for most stuff like twice a year, and it can be really stressful waiting for those payments. And so I thought, what can I do where I can help people? I want to help people. That's been my main goal the whole time. And then I found Substack. So I was like, okay, I can do really deep dives where I can charge $5 a month and give every single solitary thing I've learned. And then for the free users, I answer subscriber questions every week. So anybody who's in the subscriber chat can ask anything they want, and then I answer it in long form. And so that was the driving force was, okay, how can I be not as stressed? And it turned into...
I love this. I also heard this from Evelyn Sky. She also explained to me what it means to be a New York Times bestselling, and with the advances, what you get paid. Maybe it's just like 25,000, and then you have to somehow deal with it. To sum it up, you would also see Substack as a very writerly place where also indie authors and can find their audience in a place where lots of writers are. We are more than 50,000 publishers, more than 50,000 writers are now on Substack.
On Substack, yeah, absolutely. And I think somebody asked me how can I grow on Substack as a writer, and I thought, I don't have any information on that yet. I don't, I can give you my projection. I can tell you what I think is going to work, what's going to translate from what I've done on social media to what I've what can be taken from there and used on Substack. But that's not how I'm utilizing Substack. I'm using it to teach and help other authors instead of as a fiction writer. So it's very different for me. But I think, I asked this question on Threads the other day, which was, if you were going to give a TED Talk on one subject, and it's something that you could just talk about for ad nauseum, no matter how weird or niche you think it may be, what's that subject? What's your TED Talk going to be on? And I had all these answers, all these amazing, weird, like fantastic answers. And I just wanted to go to each person and be like, go start a Substack, go start a Substack, go start a Substack, because there's an audience for all these things. And it again is all about community. What I keep saying on Substack over and over is that the depth here is much greater than on TikTok, on Instagram, because I think it is circling back on Substack to social media as opposed to interest media, which is fantastic. It's just it's a great marriage. But yeah, so I mean, to be determined on how I can incorporate those methods to writers on Substack. We'll find out.
You've said somewhere that you think that marketing is like 80% mindset.
Oh,
which I loved. Because
yes.
It is definitely about mindset.
Yes.
It's because often people say, hey, Christina, you are a marketer and a brand manager. You know how it works. And I'm like, well, yeah, but I have like this writer heart because I studied journalism. And I have, of course, the marketing brain. But still, it has a lot to do with like the limiting beliefs you have. What's the belief you think they should replace this, like, I don't want to sound salesy, I'm not a marketer. What do you think is like what they need to know from you?
I wrote a whole post on this, on mindset, and I did that where here's the different limiting beliefs that can hold you back when it comes to marketing, and here's a belief to replace that. Whether it's marketing is too salesy, and then it's like you are depriving people who might find you or your work, which is just, it's almost a matter of hubris, where you are keeping your light hidden. And when you share, when you market, you are allowing other people the opportunity to find words and stories that might change their entire life. And you don't want to hold that from somebody. You want to take yourself out of the equation. This isn't about you. This is about the book. This is about other people. This is about how your words, your stories can make other people feel more seen. It goes always back to community, back to the emotionally resonant experience of, oh my gosh, you feel that way too? This is life-changing for me. So I think anytime, whatever the limiting belief is, it's too salesy. Oh, it's not literary to promote myself. My work isn't good enough. I'm not an author yet. All of these things, I think there's going to be a different answer. Essentially, there's not one overarching like affirmation, I think, that can be replaced, because it ultimately boils down to what your specific limiting beliefs are regarding marketing and where they stem from. Because a lot of the times, I would say 90, I talked about this before too in one of my posts. Like, this is the reason I got my degree in psychology, is because this power to literally reframe and create our reality through repetitious thought, like, is absolutely mind-blowingly powerful. So a lot of our limiting beliefs stem from our upbringing and how creativity was viewed, how you as a creative person was viewed. And that's why I always recommend this book called The Artist's Way, because it goes through each of these things, how you were raised, what your beliefs are about creativity, how you can shift those mindsets. You can become more free with yourself as a creative person. There's all different kinds of affirmations that you can replace these negative thoughts with until your brain is filled with the positive affirmations to create this new reality where you are no longer that person. And now you can march forward in success because you're not tied down to these very, very, very poisonous, toxic beliefs around you as a person. Because ultimately what it boils down to is your worth and your art and your life. So there's some work to unpack, but I think if you can find what your limiting beliefs are, you'll know what the positive affirmation is to replace it with.
Yeah, I think this is a great homework, because last week I talked with a podcast host, and he also said to me, hey, Christina, one idea besides like creating who you're gonna have on the show is also always giving people homework. And I think Bree here had like the perfect homework for you. So think about your limiting beliefs. Think about like your positive affirmations you can give yourself. What's it like when you're not writing or marketing? Or is there any time of the day where you're not doing these things? Or is it like always like writing down all my ideas on the back of my sheet?
I don't know if I have an answer to that. Because I mean, when you said marketing brain, I thought, oh gosh, yeah, that I have that very bad. I mean, I'm laying in bed and I'm thinking about my list of to-do things for tomorrow. And then all of a sudden I have this intrusive thought of, oh, here's the copy that I'm going to use for one of my next posts. It's so frustrating because I can't turn it off. I am a very type A person. I was diagnosed with OCD at the age of 5. I have ADD, and all of these things kind of mesh together to form somebody who, yikes. Like I love to work. And I'm, like I mentioned before, I'm very driven. So it is very hard for me to rest. And this is not a good thing. I'm not speaking in my favor here, because I feel like I always, especially being the sole provider for a household, in the back of my head, I'm constantly thinking, okay, got to make sure this is done. Got to make sure this is done. Got to make sure I'm promoting this. Got to make sure I'm up to date. My deadline is coming up. So it can definitely be stressful. Thankfully, I do thrive under stress. I do well with deadlines. I do well with stress. I'm taking 3 weeks off in 6 days, actually. I can't remember the last time I did that. But, this morning I was coming up here to speak with you. And my 5-year-old goes, Mommy, I don't want you to go to work. And I mean, the poor child, she has no idea that like, even this is not a normal job. You know what I mean?
No.
My office is 200 feet from the house. She comes out and sits with me sometimes while I work. Like she just wants, I'm very, very, very lucky. And I don't take any of it for granted, for sure. Right now, my journey, my goal is to kind of separate my work life from my family life, because it's very intrinsically kind of enmeshed, because I work from home and my husband is at home and my girls are homeschooled. And so, I don't want to be sitting on my computer at home when I could be playing with them, because I have my dedicated work time where I come out to the office. I work from 9 to 2, and then my husband will switch and he'll do work. I'm not good. I'm not good at taking breaks, but I am trying to find that balance. So we'll see what that looks like.
Wow. And will you travel then in the 3 weeks?
Yes. We're going to New Zealand for 3 weeks.
New Zealand.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So, Bree, I thank you so much. I loved seeing you and seeing like this playful, nerdy side. I think this fuels really your creativity. I can so much understand why people love this positive magic you're bringing to all those positive affirmations. I can somehow also feel like the pressure on you with the books and all the self-publishing stuff. You're doing it. You're really like a solopreneur mom, a solo mompreneur, which I really, really love and really adore. And everyone who's like watching or listening to this right now, how can we connect with you if we are already in love with you?
You can find me on House of Randall on almost any platform: TikTok, Instagram, Threads, and then on Substack, you can just search Brianne Randall and I should pop up. But you can send me a message anywhere, and I will always try my very, very best to respond. I dedicate like a portion of each day to responding to DMs. So yeah, you can find me at any of those places.
I wish you a wonderful time with your family then. And I think this was wonderful. It was delightful and so inspiring. Thank you so much, Bree.
Thank you. It was so wonderful to see you, Christina, and to chat. Thank you.
Love this interview. There are so many more interviews on the channel. There's a fun fact. About 90% of the people watching my videos aren't subscribers yet. It would be so wonderful to welcome you and to help you. If you love this interview, you're gonna love all the other interviews with best-selling authors such as Karen Salmonson or Evelyn Sky. So make sure to subscribe to the channel to binge watch all of them.